Hi, you're listening to God, Ghosts, and Government, a weekly conversation with Senator Kim Jackson, where she'll reflect on her journey as an Episcopal priest, farmer, legislator, and much more. I'm your host, Sharitha J., and I'm honored to share this space with you. Let's begin. Hey, it's your girl Sharitha J, and I'm back for another season, another session with the wonderful, fantastic, amazing, all those things, Senator Kim Jackson. Hey, Senator
So
Kim
much,
Jackson.
so much hype, yo. It's as if we haven't seen each other for days.
I
But hey, Sharitha J, it's good to be with you. It's good to see you.
It's so good to see you too. It's another season of God, Goats, and Government. Can you believe it? Uh,
I know what began as like a random idea has turned into like a whole thing, a whole amazingness. Yeah, so I'm excited to be
yeah,
here and excited for another season.
wonderful. I bet not only is the Capitol a buzz, but I feel like the barnyard maybe there may be a little chatter there too.
There's always activity in the barnyard.
We'll get into it. So, as always, let's get the conversation rolling because just like session, we're in it. It's the first week. I want to know like what are the feels? What's the energy at the Capitol week one?
Yeah, I mean, the energy is really high because it's as if we never left. For some listeners, you may not know or realize that we were actually in session for a special session for redistricting just in December. So, literally less than a month ago, we were doing this. And so, in some ways, it just feels like we went on holiday break and are just hitting the ground. So, it's not that slow kind of, wow, we're just wasting a lot of time startup that I'm used to. It is like, let's go, friends. Like, let the antics begin. Let the politicking happen. It's all on already.
When I think about last session, the only description that comes to mind is that it was rougher than concrete mixed with glass, but you guys managed to smooth that thing out with sandpaper. Okay, so how is it, going from that energy, as you said, you had a special session, so you're already hopping into the politicking. What kind of politicking are we getting into already?
Yeah, so I think that we saw in special session, we did this redistricting where Democrats said, like, hey, your maps are terrible. They're not going to pass. The judges muster, and they did. The judge did say that they were acceptable. And so there does feel like there's just like this little undercurrent from the Republicans are like feeling themselves of like, ah, ha, ha, we got y'all. We told you that our maps were going to work, and they did. And by the way, you now have a number of Democrats who've been drawn into districts with each other, and so y'all got to deal with that mess. And so that that's kind of in the ethos, and I'm feeling it. We lost, like, and I gave this whole speech from the well where I was like, look, y'all, we told you last time that your maps were trash. We're
Mm-hmm.
telling you now that if you submit these maps, they're gonna be trash again and be rejected, and we were just wrong. So, there's that's happening. And then
Mm-hmm.
also it's an election year. And so you've
Yeah.
got folks who are geared up to try to make sure that the red meat, for lack of a better term, is there for folks to be revved up to return to the I almost called it box office, to the ballot booth. So that's all that's there. The governor has laid out his plans. The lieutenant governor has laid out his. Interestingly, they do not necessarily align, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's fun to see. And I think we're seeing just this week we had a bill on sports betting already, and it
Mm-hmm.
came to the floor. And because of the internal politicking within the Republican Party, it didn't actually get a hearing on the floor. Like, we're
Okay.
already seeing this stuff in the first week, so it's wild. It's right out the gate, and um, I am actually looking forward to it all being done. And I know the date when it will be finished. We have a calendar
What?
again. It's
Wh-
miracles can happen 2 years in a row. Signy Die
What?
is March 28th.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Mark your
Mon- for
calendars.
it's Maundy Thursday,
Hmm. Okay.
just so you know. The night that Jesus washed people's feet will be the night in which we as servants stay up till midnight. Hopefully, we're doing some good servant type work legislation. Wouldn't that be so poetic?
Oh my
If
goodness. Almost like right.
it would
Mm.
be, so we know that's not likely to happen, but yeah. Anyway.
Indeed. I appreciate your underlying like optimism that you keep. And so I have the honor of not only being your colleague, but I get to call you friend. So to watch you navigate these waters in this way, I have a little bit of curiosity around the not only the competitiveness of it all, but you're having to play a lot of defense. Do you foresee any opportunities for you to play a little offense uh this session?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was gonna say, I have my own bills and those are offensive, but I gotta play defense with my own bill. It's kind of wild. But no, I do think we have some opportunities to do some real good. And for me, that's what playing offense is.
Mhm.
I have two bills that I'm really going to be pushing this session, maybe even a third one that might come up here soon. Just stay tuned. I don't want to announce too soon because it will be we'll even do a press conference when we're ready. But I do have a bill about in-state tuition that will continue to pick up from last year around making sure that refugees and special immigrants can get in-state tuition here in Georgia. To me, that's a good offensive bill. I will say all summer long, I had to play defense around it because the extremists on the right came hard after my Republican colleagues who signed on to that bill. You might recall I typically only author bills that have equal bipartisan support, and so the two signatories on that bill, who are Republicans, both had extremists come after them about letting refugees, letting no, it's worse than that, letting the illegals skip the line in front of American citizens to get in-state tuition. And so this summer we played a lot of defense to help shore up my Republican colleagues with how they respond to that type of extremist bullshit, not real language, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but I do think it's a great bill. And then I have an address confidentiality bill that will allow to continue my theme of caring for people who are victims and survivors of domestic violence and stalking. An address confidentiality bill that will allow folks who survive that to be able to have their addresses hidden so that like if you go and Google them, their voting record, it won't have their address where they live. If you look up any type of public database, their addresses would be held confidential so that the stalker or the person who perpetuated violence against them won't be able to find them. So to me, that's a good offensive bill,
Oh,
a
yeah.
very good proactive bill
Yeah.
on to keep families safer.
Yeah. No, that definitely sounds like a good offense. Sending you lots of support on that as you continue to some support bills that are really making a difference. These are things that unless you are directly impacted by it, it tends to not be on one's radar. So I'm glad that you're making space for it here. And just as a reminder to our listeners, can you give us the name of those two bills so that we have an ear for it as we move through session? I believe the refugee bill, it's SB 264. Just want to make sure. I'm going to say it because if for our long term, for our true listeners, you all should know Senator Jackson is terrible with the names of the bills, and I am catching myself in what I've just done. So I will say them. She knows the content, but the actual bill. So just so we know for our listeners, SB 264, that's going to be the refugee tuition bill. And then also the address confidentiality bill is going to be SB 324. So they're they both have fours in them. So, so
There,
we'll make
yeah, To be clear, I talked about those bills without giving you the bill number because I didn't know the bill number.
I respect
So
it.
thank you for telling people. And yes, the numbers, I have to come up with some acronym if there are listeners out there who can help me. So, like, my public safety bill was like 2468. Who do we appreciate? Public safety. That's how I remember that one.
Okay.
264, 324. I don't know. Y'all gotta have to help me come up with some type of acronym or a fun saying in order to help me remember the numbers. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep talking about them as my bills, and I talk about the content in them.
Oh, well, we'll keep an ear out for that as well. So, listeners, you've been given one of your call to actions by Senator Jackson. So, it's been a week so far. So, you've already hit the ground running. I also hear and also saw that you were on Lawmakers this week.
Yeah, the second day of lawmakers. Back in the studio with Donna Lowry, and this time along with my good friend. That's what we talk. That's how we talk in the legislature, right? My good
Mm.
friend Senator John Albers was along with me for that conversation.
Don't you have a parking space at the studio at this point? Because I feel like you are the one of the go-to people. I really enjoy your segments. I'm a little biased though.
Slightly biased, and I will say that the parking space that they tell us to park in, I actually can't get to because it's so far up in the parking deck that it makes me have vertigo. So I always have to have a driver who brings me and drops me off on the lower level so that I'm not feeling drunk on camera. So yes, there is a designated parking space, but I don't use it.
Well, and that's important that you have made that decision.
Of course, I had to learn that the hard way, so that my very first appearance on Lawmakers, I can't speak to how good or not good it was because I really was suffering from some significant motion sickness from the ride
Wow.
up in the parking deck. Yeah.
Wow. Well, please tell us what you tackled this week on day two of lawmakers. What was the topic this week?
Yeah, so the topic was swatting, which is for people who don't know, it's when somebody uses the 911, misuses, abuses the 911 system to call in a fake hostage type scenario
Mm,
and resulting in law enforcement officers kind of swarming or swatting um, a residence or a place of business that could also be done. So that was a topic because several lawmakers over Christmas holidays, including myself, were swatted.
mm,
And so John Albers, his house was there. He wasn't there. His son was there, and him, but he was the target of swatting along with me. And so we just went on to talk about that issue to really highlight the fact that it's not funny. It's not a hoax. It's not and to be honest, the person who's doing it, I think knows it's not a hoax, but just to call it out, and to really raise awareness for our entire community that this is something that could happen, and if it happens to you, people need to know that it's a thing so that you know how to respond appropriately to law enforcement when they
mm,
do arrive at your house.
mm. Well, I want to offer an apology, though I had nothing to do with it, but I can imagine the emotional toll, the impact of just being in that moment for you, your family, and having to keep a cool and calm and collective head in a situation such as that. I want to know, and I'm really curious about it because it is a misuse of resources. And can you speak to what that looks like when we talk about a misuse of resources so that folks understand?
Yeah, so in my little neighborhood, you've been there, Sharitha, we have basically a one-lane street. It's not a particularly huge bubbling place. There were six cruisers parked in front of my house that I could see. Six cruisers. What was beyond my vision, I can't speak to. And there were several law enforcement officers. Our entire property is somewhat of a fortress not because we needed to be fortress, it's fortress to keep our animals in, right? And so those of you who were listeners in our very first season know that it's also to try to keep the neighbors' animals out. um,
Billy.
despite oh, Billy has gone on to be with the Lord, I guess. Part of that great heavenly banquet.
Mm,
But so we are completely fenced in, and so what that means is that law enforcement officers in full gear. So they're all of the gear that they bring had to jump over, climb over our fences in order to get into our space to come to our front door. And then they also had EMS standing by. They were staged just a street over because EMS cannot be on scene where there may be potential gunfire. They have to be off-site, but they were staged just a street over. So, I mean, that's six trooper cars, one EMS bus, and no doubt fire and rescue also just a call away, all responding to my house when there was nothing wrong, which means they weren't responding in other places where there may have been something going on. And the potential, the waste of resources, it's not just about them being at my house being busy when they didn't need to be. It's also about even how they get there because of the nature of the call. They came in lights and sirens, which means they came in driving faster. And if you work in law enforcement or adjacent to law enforcement, what we don't talk about out loud is that one of the most dangerous things for law enforcement and EMS is driving lights and sirens. A
mm,
lot of accidents happen rushing, driving at a rapid speed to get to the scene of potential crime. And so to have six cars zooming on a cold, rainy day put lives at danger. Just
mm,
that alone increase the potential for harm, let alone the fact that they weren't able to respond to other places. So it's an extraordinary waste of resources, extraordinary waste of time because I'm not an elected official. I had two officers who had to stay at my house and write a report, and it took 2 hours because we have to contact the GBI, the FBI, Homeland Security. And I'm grateful that all of these agencies are here to be in my corner and to ensure that we're protected. But it's just a massive amount of resources that was wasted
wow.
when our family would have rather have just enjoyed a beautiful quiet day after day after Christmas. That's what we're looking for. So um yeah, that's what swatting looks like. And I'm grateful that we have some things in place now where hopefully we will never be swatted again, but we just kind of hope and pray.
Mm. Well, thank you for that insight, Senator Jackson. I know it's truly not the start of this of session that the bang that you were hoping for in a sense, but I am pleased to hear, and I know our listeners are pleased to hear that you and your family are okay and that you are energized around what's to come.
Hey, I got a story that I do want to tell about this whole swatting thing.
Okay.
Okay, so the inside thing that I would, that doesn't get told on lawmakers or will not be on, will not be publicized. So, we have this whole swatting thing. I open the door. I know we're being swatted because I know what swatting is. Also, I had just sent a tweet about swatting 20 minutes before
Oh,
about how it was bad. So, I had the kind of heads up. But we have, and we've never talked about this on God, Ghosts, and Governments because we did not have a son at the time. So we have this little 2-year-old who is just such a great joy and delight who lives in our house. Well, he's potty training. Like I decided to take the week after Christmas to help him potty train. And for those who've never potty trained a child, one of the techniques you can use is that you have them go without pants, like they just kind of go diaperless for a certain period of time so that they can learn how to feel because a diaper makes them not be able to feel. Anyway, so the police officers come. Reese is in his room. Of course, he's pantless because he's potty training and playing with his toys. I leave his room thinking that I've left him there with all of his trucks and go to respond to the officers. And I'm talking to the officer. thankfully at this point the guns are down, they've been holstered, and I see the officer's face like change, but I can't read his change of face. But I hear Trina say, Reese, get over here. And I feel the wind as she like pulls him away. Apparently, my kid has been standing behind me in full sight of the officer without any clothes on. So the police officer, God bless him, gets a full frontal of my little 2-year-old. And that's why his face changed. But also, he says to me, ma'am, normally we would come inside of the house and, do a whole search to make make sure everything's okay. But I think we're good here. So let's just go. Let's just go back up to my car and write the report. So thanks, Reese. I really appreciate you, baby boy. You kept the police from having to search our house because you exposed it all to them.
Wow. I
Yeah.
cannot think of a more fitting way to close out this space, really and truly hitting on now the theme of God, goats, government, and the gift of motherhood. Because I mean, what do you do the best you can.
Hey, hey, you show up at my house unannounced. Sometimes you just might get more than you looked for. And indeed they did. But I think that Reese is the true hero of our whole swatting story. And God bless that child. And I'm grateful for the way that scenario went down because I mean, I'm not sure exactly when he arrived behind me because I couldn't see him, but I'm clear that it was after the guns were put away, and
Mhm.
so I'm really grateful that he did not have that experience of having guns trained on him, and that instead he got to have a part of this really funny exchange where he flashes the officer, who then was like
Gosh.
super sweet, and of course it led to an immediate conversation about his kids and how they were his that age and enjoy the time and all that stuff. So it
Mm,
ended up really sweet.
mm. Well, Senator Jackson, on that note, is there anything else we need to touch on? What are we looking forward to in the coming weeks that our listeners need to keep an eye on and to listen out for as well?
Yeah, so this coming week, when this podcast is dropped, we'll be in the middle of budget week where we'll be discussing and trying to decide how we spend the billions with a B of money that we have tucked aside in our reserves. And so that'll be an interesting conversation that will be taking place. But as we move forward in the session, please be on the lookout. We'll send alerts and they'll make notices and things. There will undoubtedly be some bad bills. This will be a year of defense once again. I have no question about it. So just be on the lookout for that. And then, at late January, look for me to be holding a press conference where we talk about some really good legislation that hopefully everybody can get around that will not be repulsive and will not cause harm, but instead will be doing some really good in the world. So I'm excited about that. Sharitha, you will get a personal invite to that because it has something to do with the work that we do together when we are not
Ooh,
in session. That's a little hint.
wonderful. Okay. I will look for the invitation. And I also hope that as you guys go towards budget week, that you are better with the resources than those who are misusing our resources for swatting. So we'll continue to keep an optimistic view, but also realistic. And we appreciate you for your transparency and keeping us up to date on what's to come. Other than that, Senator Jackson, I like to honor your time. So I'm going to close us out if it's okay with you.
I think it is. Let's do this.
Wonderful. Well, you've been listening to another fantastic session of God, Goats, and Government.
Until next time, like, subscribe, and yo, we need y'all to leave comments because that's actually how this stuff gets like pushed up in the algorithm. We've learned a lot over the last, break. So please leave a comment, a good comment. Okay, it can even be a bad comment because we'll respond to that and defend ourselves because we know how to do that. So like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with a friend.
Indeed, and you can find us at Kim for Georgia on all social media platforms.
All right, guys, be easy.